All right, gotcha. Well, hello there, everyone. Boy, has it been a week. Let me do a little intro for today. Let's share the typical starting point of these sessions. Welcome to another episode of Amplifying F Sharp. We are an initiative that hopes to see the F Sharp ecosystem flourish by contributing to various open source F Sharp projects. We have a lot of ongoing initiatives. I'll quickly walk you through. Our bread and butter is a set of sessions which we do. We try and talk about various topics, learn how to contribute, learn how to, learn a lot more about F Sharp in general. Just really educational material, trying to bring some content that's not yet out there. We also have a F Sharp Essentials lecture. This is really for beginners, so not really beginner programmers, but people who just never really picked up F Sharp and who want to learn it. We're partnering with Ian Russell on this. We have weekly sessions, which are also recorded. There's a lot of good stuff going on there, so I definitely circle back to this page if you still want to join. Even if you missed the earlier sessions, that's still always an option. Then the new thing, which is announced earlier this week, we have actually created an open collective. We think that with some additional funding, we have some other ideas that we can undertake. I'm not going to go to our entire page, but the TLDR is that if we have X amount of money, we have a Y amount of possibilities or things in mind that we want to do. And let's just skip to the good part. We actually have a lot of individuals already chiming in on this, and we are very, very appreciative of this, overwhelmed by this support that we have this week. This was a total surprise for us. We wanted to do this. We wanted to try and then see how people responded, and the response has been pretty much overwhelming. I definitely encourage people also to take a look at our About section. So on our Open Collective, we wrote a bit of a text here. Why do we need money? We elaborated on that. Why is it necessarily required to invest in F Sharp? Like there's some things to this that makes this whole puzzle piece fall together. So yeah, we really thank you for looking into. And there's a bit of a bet going on when you have certain amounts of money collected, we'll, dye our hair blue, and Edgar will do that when we have £5,000. We are almost kind of halfway there. Just wanted to keep you updates. It will happen this year, so people have been very generous. We've collected enough by the end of the year. Edgar's definitely having blue hair, but if you want to see it faster, chime in and show your support. We'll get his hair blue one day. Going back to our page, we are still looking for topics. So if you want to have a session about something, if you have something interesting to say, we really appreciate people, asking for stuff or showing stuff. You don't have to be an expert about it. Just, fill in our form. We'll get in touch with you when you'll figure out if we can organize a session. Which brings me to today's session. We're very fortunate to have Honor with us, who is going to teach us how you can debug some F-sharp code with some great examples. So I'll shut up now, give Honor the stage, and enjoy the show.
You are on mute, Honor.
Apologies. Hello, everyone. My name is Onur. Some of you already know me. I've been doing some sessions. And this will be a somewhat high-demanded one because earlier I made some polls on what people want to learn about, and then this was just one of the top things came out on how to debug things. Well, I've used Visual Studio, and probably in JetBrains, you just click and things start debugging. But the topic I was going to focus is a little bit how to do things on VS Code, and in particular, perhaps I'll try to show you how to debug Fable itself, which is, as you know, it just gets compiled to JavaScript. So that will be the brief agenda today. For starters, I'll start something very simplistic, and also we'll see some challenges. At least I have. Not everything goes smoothly. Perhaps there are things I'm not fully aware. Feel free to contact me or people at Amplifying F Sharp if you know the proper solutions. For the beginners, I'll just, so you can see my terminal, I presume I'll just share my screen afterwards.
Share your screen.
Yeah. And yeah, I assume you see my terminal. Now I'll create a
make it a little bit bigger just for
well,
the stream.
yeah, it is a bit small, but that's not so important because I'll just briefly use it. I'll just create a dummy project for the time being. You can create this any way you want. Console -long F#. I like to use terminal stuff. Debug yes. So let's create a new console project with in F# language where we call it debug fs. I'll just switch to this directory, and then from them I'll just continue with VS Code. So you can create this project however you want. That's not really relevant. Okay, now we can zoom a bit. See things a bit more clear. So once you create that project, I have my Ionide extension installed. If you haven't installed it, you can go to the market and just search for Ionide. There are different extensions. For the sake of simplicity, I actually uninstalled these other stuff. The only thing you will need is this one. But in particular, I also recommend you to go through with the Ionide Plus Solution Explorer, which will enhance your coding experience. I would recommend to go with that as well. By default, Ionide detects if there's any F# project or perhaps a file exists in the current working directory, then you should see this icon available. And once I go there, you just see the project layout as here, and you can see that there's only one liner. So in the earlier times, perhaps because it's my operating system or something changed with the VS Code, to get started in debugging, it was just enough to click this button, and that would just work out. However, recently, due to some reason, it doesn't work as nice as for me. Perhaps you may have a different experience, but let's just see what happens. So I'll put a breakpoint here, and then I'll just press this button here. And just wait. And then for me, I'm using a macOS. And then I end up with this. For me, it's rather cryptic. It doesn't like something, maybe my terminal or my operating system. If it works for you, I'm glad. But literally, it says that, well, it just doesn't work. So what can we do about it is just something we have a very simple solution. There's an alternative way, a little bit more verbose, but we'll just go through that. So once you do that, you will see this run debug section section is open, and you just click to this show all automatic debug configurations. And I think you can here choose the .NET Plus 5 and .NET Core. You can just choose this middle one, and then choose the default project, and then that should give you the initial debugging experience. And actually, that's it. So you can see that that's in a very simplistic way. Our breakpoint is just it. So from the right-hand side panel, you can see the basic debugging actions where you can just continue. You can just step over, step out, step in, step out, restart debugging, and stop altogether. On the left pane, you can see the locals, the ones you want to watch, the call stack, if you want to see, and also you can choose. You can see your breakpoints as well as you can choose to whichever breakpoints you want to trigger. For example, you want the breakpoints trigger whenever you want the program to stop, debugger to stop whenever any exception happens, or just perhaps only when the user unhandled exceptions happen. So that's all good. Well, actually, if I'm sure you're more or less familiar if you especially use Visual Studio kind of tools with this kind of debugging experience. A small nice feature about F# is probably something unique to F# is that, so in F# we used to program with the pipes. So one of the things is just when you start to debug things like this, let's call this y, and then let's add y+1. And then that's another pipeline where y plus 2, and then let's just print it out. So this is general pattern we employ in F# programming. We build our pipelines. And the thing is, in the old times, when you have such expressions, debugging could be very tricky. However, with the new experience, we'll just start. You can see that actually the Ionide, or through its debugging facilities, it's able to show what happens at each step. So let's put our first breakpoint here, and then you can see actually, well, the X is 1, so that's for sure. And it already shows us that the pipe number 1 at the input line 3, which refers to this line, is 1. So if you go to the next line, you can see it actually shows the result after what happened after this pipeline executed. So we increment the X, in this case, it becomes Y by 1, and then we can see actually it became 2. And if we continue, then we can see actually what happens in the next step. And we added another 2, then it just became 4. So this is actually pretty unique. If you have some pipelines, F# has this kind of capability to show you what's going on at each pipeline. I find it very, very, very handy. Otherwise, your life would be very miserable if you are intended to debug these kind of expressions. Another thing is, well, in this debug console, you could just, if you want to, for example, question some of the values, query some of the values, is that you can just use this kind of, for example, if I type X, then you would see the value of it. However, the point you need to be careful about this thing is just actually this part of the debugger, it's actually working as a C# debugger. So you can't just, unfortunately, put F# expressions. It's not working there. You could instead, you need to use C# kind of expressions, and not always everything works. So sometimes, for example, if you try to, well, for starters, if you try to something like printf, that's not going to work. It says even the printf is actually something is unknown. And if you try to print things to the console by using a write line, then unfortunately, this also doesn't work, at least the last time. So it says, well, it calls some sort of native method, and it's not supported here. But actually, it evaluated the code. But this is not a problem, because whenever you want to see something's value, you can just hit it, and then you can see. And you can actually use somewhat more sophisticated C# stuff here. Let's create a lambda expression here. Let's call it y equals m, and if you just type regular C# here, for example, x times x, and then we created a lambda expression in C# syntax, and we can still pass our value here, and you can see it's actually squared, and 1 squared is 1. So you still have the power of C# debugger, and you can use this in Visual Studio. It's called immediate window, and that's still available. You can also use, again, it still works in a C# standpoint of view, but if you edit the breakpoint, so you can put expression here where you want to break if this particular expression holds true. Because again, you need to use C# syntax with double equals, not single equals. Hit count, or just you don't want to break that. You don't want to break. You just want to log a message, or you could just wait for another breakpoint. So this is again a standard feature of. It's not directly related. These are not related directly to F# itself, but this is general .NET debugging experience when you use VS Code. Right. The next thing we are going to talk about is, let's try to do something a little bit more complicated. I think we can. So I'll just share a more complicated project, something I use as a playground, and then we'll see how our experience works there. I'll just stop this here and then I'll just close it. So to follow with me, if you're watching this, you need to go to this repo and then clone this. Well, zooming here doesn't matter, but I'm not sure if you can see it. Let me just close this one. You need to go and you can clone this thing. It's just a simple web application, which I was developing as a side project. And the content does not matter, but it's using some Fable stuff, and there's some sort of Akka.NET stuff integrated into that. So once you clone it, it's also working. I developed this it works as under a dev container. Yeah, sorry. So let's go to so the project is open here. If you clone and then reopen, you need to actually from the command palette, you need to by default reopen in container. So you can see a C. Well, it's already open in container right now, but actually the first time you clone this thing, you should see when you open VS Code, you should see this kind of dialog box appearing, and then if you open it, for you this should take quite a bit of time because this dev container sets up .NET and installs all the dependencies and other things. But it's a little bit more realistic project. So I'll just do .NET Build just for the sake of to make things more clear. Yeah, and you can see actually because this is a dev container, I have the freedom to install the extensions I like, and you can see actually this ionized solution extension is just there, which is actually for me it's a lot nicer to my eyes. So let's just run it. By default, in order to run this, just use a fake script. So I'll just execute this fake.sh. Right now, although my real operating system is macOS, I'm using, so this is inside a dev container, and this is a Linux environment. The project's content isn't very important for this demonstration. We're only going to focus on the debugging aspects of it. Yeah, so if you run it, I think it runs in 1570. You should see this kind of screen, and then if you try to log in, then you should just come up with some sort of login screen. So there's a lot of different things going on here. And we'll just see things from a debugging perspective. But let's just see the project first of all. Well, there's some sort of test stuff, which hopefully we are not going to touch it. There's the server-side part, which is actually Giraffe application, and there's the client-side part, which is a Fable application. So in order to debug Fable stuff, first of all, you don't need VS Code. You can just use the browser itself. But there's one interesting bit about it. You need to, in order to debug F# code, even inside the browser, use VS Code either. You need to emit symbols or source maps, actually, in particular for the JavaScript world. And how you emit the source maps is that it's actually a configuration issue. And it's actually all about the passing a -s switch to the .NET Fable. So I have an npm script and command called start, and when this is executed by my fake script, it actually starts the Fable with the watch mode, and then it just listens to compiles and listens to the current folder. And you can see this -s switch. It's just instructs it to generate source maps, and then this is the output folder. If you look at this build folder, which is this part, you can see the compiled JavaScripts here, but as well as it actually points to the source maps as well. So in that sense, it is all you have to do. However, I have to warn you, debugging F# from a JavaScript standpoint of view isn't as perfect as you would see in .NET, because there's a lot of translation going on. A lot of types is actually don't exist directly in the JavaScript world. So your experience isn't super great, but it's actually still helpful. And for starters, you can just go to your browser, and you don't have to do anything. You can just go and in my case, I have configured, so you go to the sources tab. By default, this isn't selected, but in Chrome or Edge kind of browsers, you have the option to group by authored and deployed. So this is something I like to choose. By default, this isn't on, but once you do that, it actually groups your code is authored and then the deployed code as the JavaScript ones. And you can see the JavaScript ones are here, whereas the F# code is here. At this point, you can actually put breakpoints and inspect things. So I have a country selector here, so I just select this file. There's a breakpoint here, and yeah, I guess so. This is actually utilizing Fable lit, but better whichever Fable you use React or other things, they work the same. So there isn't any difference when it comes to debugging. So when I click this, sorry, let's just reload the browser first of all. And you can see actually immediately our breakpoint is hit. And actually, this is the standard Elmish update function. And you can see we can see the message if you click this named thing. So this is a discriminated union, a single case. And as I said, there are some limitations. It's not as smooth as .NET. Because I had to click this ellipsis and then actually see the real data structure, and I can also see that. But they're not really the F# style discriminated unions in the classical sense. They're just a little bit more sugared version of JavaScript objects, but still very helpful. You can still put breakpoints and see things. And there are cases where it actually your breakpoints don't work as expected, but it's still better than nothing. So it actually works quite good in general. So here's I just try to click this and it actually hit another breakpoint. If I try to step over, it just moves out. I'm not entirely sure to what level. Sorry, step overing is just as I wanted. It's a little bit. There's a lot of inaccuracy here, but it's still not so bad. So in a sense, this is actually usually sufficient. But let's say you want to use the VS Code. You want to get the VS Code experience. Can you do that? Yes, you can. We need a little bit we need to do a bit configuration for this. I'll just try to show how that works. In this case, we need to go by default. VS Code has this launch.json file where you can just configure how you want to launch things. I have some profiles for attaching code and also debugging the client. So this is actually I think there's 6-7 lines here. You need to utilize it. So it says that, well, this is just a name and you need to give the type as Chrome. In the old times, this was called PWA Chrome, but now it just became Chrome. You just say that I want to launch it. You give the port. You give the files where these JavaScript and map files exist, and you need to give this source maps to true. And you still need to keep the application running. So this isn't going to build the application. We make an assumption that we already are running the application by the time before we click this. Once you have these lines available, you will see this option here. Okay. And let's see if we have any breakpoints yet. I presume we have. Let's cross-check once more. Yeah, so we have a couple of breakpoints. We can put another one here. And you can see actually, well, this is a Fable lit code. It immediately hit. If I continue, then it hit again. So yeah, you can use these breakpoints. So for some reason, I wasn't able to run the conditional ones, but at least the immediate window is just, again, it's actually JavaScript. You see that just like there's no F# here, but you can just use kind of see these kind of things. Well, I suppose that should have worked. I'm not typing actually. That's why. Yeah. And you have some, again, basic level of experience on the VS Code side. So whichever you choose, I generally just stick to the browser version. I think there isn't much benefit of doing it VS Code. Perhaps a little bit doing things faster. But if you want to go with the VS Code experience, this is also an option. So that covers this part. Now we have seen how to debug the client. Let's just dig things a bit more on the .NET side, a little bit more advanced configurations. Again, whatever I show you isn't actually F# specific. It's about the general. These are general VS Code, or in the old times it's called OmniSharp, and perhaps now it's called C# DevKit. Whichever debugger is running there, it's their own capabilities, and these are documented actually in their official site. So we have this web application. Let me go briefly about these lines. What do they do? You can just give it any arbitrary name. The type should be, if you want to debug the .NET application, should be the core CLR. You need to issue a launch request, and you can actually instruct the execute some other commands. Just as a pre-launch task, build server. These commands exist in the task.json, so you can just in this case, it just executes a .NET build on the shell, given current working directory here. And well, there's the program arguments again, the same stuff here. This is for the launching part. The console is so you have three options here. You just have the internal, external console. Sometimes right now I'm in dev container mode. Some of these things may not work well, so you may want to try, but let's just stick to the internal console for the time being. Stop and enter just says that, well, don't stop at the enter function. Just my code, by default, you will want this to be true, but so for the sake of this demo, I'll just show this as false, because we would like to debug or other parts of the code, just not just the code we have written. Making this false also allows you to break any kind of exception. Yeah. So require exact source code is just saying that, well, should we really require? So I think when you're debugging some libraries like .NET Code, .NET itself code, or third-party libraries, it's best to keep this false. But otherwise, you may want to keep it true. Again, suppressed JIT optimizations work well when you set it to true for local. So this depends. I mean, if you set it to true, it will try to suppress it, but it's not actually enough in some cases. So symbol options is an interesting one. So if you need to, if you want to get the .NET's own source code, debug .NET's own source code, own symbols, you can just you need to set this true, and also you can just get the third party, which is I think these days called source link, source code from the NuGet server. Then you can also consider turning on this. I'm not entirely sure actually. This refers to the PDBs, or the source link just works inside the package. I do not want to make anything excluded. For the first time in the debugging, I would recommend you to to keep these settings on, because if something goes wrong, then you'll be able to see relevant logs. So notice here, this was somewhat a problem I wasn't able to solve. I commented this out because when you run this thing under a dev container, keeping this available somehow stops debugging. But if you're not using dev container, by all means, you can just use this thing. So that's something you need to be careful. At least this was my experience. And also, there's another switch here. You can see that. This further, if you want to debug things further, I mean, there are some cases where your breakpoints may not hit because of some sort of optimizations, because of ridgeting. So you can specify environment variables. These are documented features. So this you want to stop the ready to run, and this I think prevents the tier 1 level G-thing. So this just gives you a very rough, unoptimized code, but it may help you to see the variables where you were not able to see them. Otherwise, you can see that, well, in the Visual Studio, for example, in particular, without this switch, I frequently see, well, this is optimized and you can't see the actual value. So once we are there, let's see what happens if we try to run it. Stop it first. Oh, sorry. I haven't switched. So let's call launch web. Now, if you do this first time, you will see a lot of stuff. This can take quite a while, actually, for you if you haven't downloaded the symbols. And the configuration builder is something belongs to .NET Framework, and I just can go into that. So if you just do it, you can see that, well, we are suddenly in debugging C# code of the .NET Framework, and then we can continue just like that. The terminal, yeah, and yep, actually, we can debug this thing in and out, and that's actually precisely how you debug things. Again, on the left-hand side, you can see this is actually a C# level experience again, and then there isn't much specific to F#, but still you have the just because you're using F#, it doesn't mean that you can't do the things that C# developers do with VS Code. You still have the same freedom and same capabilities of these things again. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Yeah. So as a summary, we have covered basic level of debugging, how to debug with the F# code when we create a new project. I've shown you that just putting this button did not work for me. Then I've shown you that in order to debug Fable code, the first thing you need to do was to emit the symbols, where I do it via this -s switch, which generates the output here, and afterwards, well, one option is just you can use the browser. Otherwise, you can just you need to create such a configuration. You need to pass the type as Chrome, and then give the initial URL and point to the source maps. And from a if you want to debug the server-side code, especially if you want to debug the .NET source code, then you need to bring the symbols, and then you need to come up with this kind of configuration. Yeah. I'll just stop sharing. I guess this is all I wanted to share.
Yes, thank you. That was very insightful. I must say I don't really debug that much in both the browser and I guess in VS Code, so it's very good to sort of see all this in action. Thank you for this demo, and just going over the settings was also very insightful. I'll
Thank you.
definitely revisit this session.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. I learned a lot of stuff regarding the web because I haven't really. Last time I tried to do something similar, I couldn't even go past the first error that you just showed us, and then now I know where I need to click in order to do that. So that was good stuff. And also, I think the power of VS Code and all of these extensions is that, for example, I do mobile apps with F Sharp, and sometimes I also need to be able to show the simulators or emulators or the real devices. So I am able to basically install different extensions and basically use Ionide for the F Sharp code, but use another extension to launch the devices and all of that stuff. So, it is a plug and play, I guess, experience, which, it's good in my experience. So it's improvable, and in amplifying F Sharp, we also want to help improving that with these new donations that we have, and hopefully, we can work on that and make our experience better for everyone. But thank you.
Oh yeah, owner for sure. Make sure if there's not an issue open on Ionide about that one thing, open it. Or
Yeah,
ping me about it so we can kind of look at it later.
It's a lot of so there are a lot of equations, the operating system and the who knows, right? It's
right.
It's very challenging to make it work in every kind of environment. I can imagine the
probably
difficulty.
because like in that particular context, we're calling something on the command line that might not be correct, because pretty much the Ionide doesn't have a debugger in it. We're utilizing the C# extension to use their debugger, and we just get to ride along for free. So they probably change things occasionally, or we didn't do things correctly in the first place, or whatever it is. So
yeah, I'll definitely open an issue.
And it's also good that there's all those settings, because I didn't know about half of those things, and I use VS Code every day.
How did you stumble upon all these settings?
Well, I have to, right, eventually, because I need it. So I like VS Code because it's very flexible, and I think Ionide combined with Ionide, it's good enough to do my task, and I did pretty serious stuff. I was also employed as an F# developer for a year, actually. So I developed real professional projects with VS Code and Ionide. So time to time you need it. You need to know what's going on, how to debug things. I know that in JetBrains and the other Visual Studio, the experience is somewhat smoother, but you have less control. When something goes wrong, then you just have to pray. In that case, I feel a little bit more lucky that when I have more control over these things. Yeah, but these are all documented. If you Google these switches, there's actually an official documentation. It's more like a C#, most of the stuff. Perhaps the only less documented part is the debugging the Fable part. But yeah. Anyway.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, my experience with just the source map is it's not great, and in a lot of cases, like I use WebSharper at work, and it's got the same kind of like general JavaScript problems. Like what it compiles to is not like how it maps back to your actual F# code is not as clear and distinct. Whereas like the F# code that gets admitted as IL, that debugging experience coming back to your F# code is mind-blowingly better. And it's amazing how the Microsoft and the F# team themselves have done the work to make that debugging experience really nice.
So this actually, what you said actually led me an interesting point, because I was developing full-fledged Fable applications. I realized that if I could just move the core part, the core logic of my application Fable-free, then I can just write tests, debug it, and then I mean, you can get .NET level code coverage and still use the same code on Fable. So I have this kind of experience, and then this just led me to come up with some interesting patterns. But again, all in all, it's superior to have a debugger that runs on Fable. And at some point, it was jeopardized because I remember, and I think while passing to Fable 2 to Fable 3, I think there was some sort of the change happening, and then people were thinking how to incorporate, how to read the source maps, and someone came up and integrated the source map, restored the source map integration back to Fable again, which is I'm very grateful.
All right, just looking at the chat, I don't see any questions, but if folks have any, now would be a good time. Right, going once, going twice. I think we covered everything. So yeah, thank you all very much for joining us. This has been another wonderful, insightful session. Thank you, Honor, for doing this. Perhaps we can do this again sometime. And yeah, Honor also has a lot of upcoming courses. You want to wrap up and say a couple of words about those? When exactly is the next thing happening?
Well, the next thing is, I think next week. So I think that one won't be in the amplifier F# context, but perhaps the future ones will be, because it was a bit short due to short time. So this is something we can discuss later. Next week, I'll talk about the agents and actors, actually, because this is a fundamental problem. How do we manage state? Because as a developer, when I type F# developer, when I type let mutable, I start to feel guilty. I don't know why, if you have the same kind of thing, as if I'm doing something wrong. But that's actually perfectly logical, right? So agents and actors are the functional way to manage the state in a more correct way, with their own bringing their own baggage. But so I'll talk about that. Yeah.
All right, great. Thanks. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
we'll definitely amplify that content as well.
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully if the conditions permit, I plan to contribute more to amplify F# cows. As I said, this next week's presentation is not free, but I think it's the early bird price is something like $5, but all the money collected will be donated to amplify F#. For that. Yeah, there are already 10 attendees. So
Thank you for that. That's generous.
awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
One last
Yeah,
thing.
please.
Edgar and Ronald and me will be in Berlin next week for the Great BobConf. Ronald and me will give a tutorial about our beloved computation expressions. So yeah, if you happen to be at the conference, or if you are Berlin based and want to meet up for a beer or a coffee or something else, yeah, just get in touch with us, and yeah, we will be happy to talk shop and yeah, enjoy some F# folks. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Looking forward to that one. Really looking forward.
Maybe we can drag Edgar in a barbershop for the hair dyeing action, and you can be part of the live coverage of that. So think of it.
That would be actually amazing. I can do a blue Mohican or something like that, like like a Berlin style. So
Yep. Yeah.
really amazing. Yeah, see you there. Thank you, bro.
Stream has been stopped.